Hi, I'm Kendall with the Rawls Group. The old African proverb, "It takes a village," illustrates the essential nature of a team approach to succession planning. Succession planning is a complex endeavor. As such, it requires leveraging the expertise of a diversity of backgrounds. Collaboration and different expert opinions provides a 360-degree approach, ensuring the possible, probable, and potential issues impacting your long-term vision are addressed. To provide insight into common questions received from business owners, we are leveraging the village of our valued strategic relationships. As you listen to this episode, you'll be able to immediately apply the key takeaways and you'll come back for more. Now we're going to focus on, can you share any strategies for helping my son and daughter to learn how to work together?
Today, I want to share with you 4 strategies on helping your children work together more effectively. Number 1 is clearly define their roles and responsibilities. We find too often that children are not clearly aware of what the roles and responsibilities are, and they end up stepping on each other, and they don't know, who's responsible for what and who's accountable for what. And so clear definition of who's in what role, what the reporting structure is, what the responsibilities of those job descriptions are, is critically important. A second strategy would be to understand the unique personality differences of your children, what their communication styles are, what their leadership styles are. Become a student of yourself. Demonstrate to them by becoming a student of yourself and a student of them. Learn what makes them tick and what makes them respond differently and more effectively. When we understand those communication styles and leadership styles, we're just much more effective when we adapt to one another's styles. So demonstrate and let them follow your lead in terms of becoming students of one another so that they can become more effective. The third strategy would be to help them understand they are on the same team. They are not in competition for your approval. They need to work hard at earning the approval of the teams that they're leading and each other. And they need to understand that the competition is outside of your organization. It is not within your organization. A fourth strategy would be simply to just get out of their way. Many of the organizations we work with, dad and or mom serves as sort of the control rod of conflict, as the de facto mediator between the kids. That does them no favors in helping them learn how to navigate conflict effectively on their own, because they're going to have to do that when you're no longer around or no longer involved. So give them the space that they need to do so. So those are 4 simple but not so easy strategies. There's a lot of hard work involved in becoming an effective sibling partnership. But you as the business owner and as the leader can help your children be more effective by following these simple strategies.
Relationships between siblings can be less than ideal in a challenging work environment. It's something we see as a very common issue with succession-minded families. And not just siblings. Throw in cousins, relationships between parents and kids. Oh, and then there's in-laws. Siblings especially, though, may have challenged each other their whole lives and have even learned what buttons to push to egg each other on even more. First, strive to understand why siblings may not have been working well together prior to facing the additional challenges represented by the coronavirus. For example, we each have our own unique personalities or behavioral traits which determine how we view and communicate with others, how we manage, how we make decisions, what drives and motivates us, and even how we handle things when we run out of patience or are experiencing stress, both of which we probably saw a lot of during the pandemic. At the Rawls Group, we use the ProScan survey, a strengths-based assessment that helps our clients understand that we are each different. We act differently, value things differently, interact with others differently, and these differences don't represent negatives. These are positive differences that we should celebrate. Which leads us to the next item. Recognize each other's strengths. We each have unique strengths, which many times with siblings actually complement each other and strengthen the overall organization. They just don't always realize that. Sometimes in the struggle for power and the desire for positional roles, we don't consider the best roles. It's easy to lose sight of where and how a family member can best serve the organization. Define roles and responsibilities for each position you need within the organization, and not just family members. Then determine the best person to fill each role, instead of simply looking at who you have and where you can place them. Next, help siblings reel in their egos. The competition isn't between them, at least it shouldn't be. No, the competition is the guy down the street or across town who's beating you up for market share. If siblings don't learn to manage their egos and how to work together, they'll never be able to earn the respect of other managers or effectively manage the business. Also, set expectations. Unmet expectations are the most common cause of broken relationships. But that doesn't just go for marriages. It applies to partnerships and family relationships as well. We like to have family members, even managers, create a set of covenants that define their expectations of each other. I'd like to see more of this particular behavior or task accomplishment, or maybe even more of your time to strategize. Speaking of time together, one way to gauge how we're doing with each other is to communicate. George Bernard Shaw once wrote, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has actually taken place." Find a way to communicate often. Schedule regular meetings. Effective communication, as long as it's not confrontational, precludes surprises, something that can easily trigger bad behavior. I hope these tips have been helpful. For more information on strategies for working together, catch our blog post at seekingsuccession.com.
There is an old expression that says, if it weren't for people, this would really be an easy business. But we do have people in there, and part of what we're going to be talking about is whether they're family or friends, there's going to be conflict. It's inevitable. War, however, is optional. And there are 5 ways that we think you can go about reducing the risks of having conflict actually turn into open warfare within your own business. And here are the 5 strategies that were put together by 2 psychologists named Thomas and Kilman. And they put together an index called the Thomas-Kilman conflict mode. So here are 5 approaches that they suggest you consider taking. Approach number 1 for you is called collaboration. And we want people to get together and begin working in ways that are both assertive and cooperative so that we have multiple winners in the same thing. This is very difficult to do. We think of collaboration as being easy, but it's one of the most difficult things that's going to happen because both sides have to walk away feeling like they won. The second approach is dealing with competition among the people, either your siblings or your children or some of your managers. And this is a case where there's not a great deal of cooperation, but there is a lot of assertiveness because one side or one party wants to walk away with his or her own personal agenda. The third strategy for dealing with conflict we would call compromise. And compromise is neither assertive nor cooperative. It's kind of a combination of both. And it's particularly effective when both sides are willing to accept whatever the decision is. They can live with it. They don't like it necessarily, but they can live with it. The fourth strategy that you can use in dealing with conflict is called accommodation. This is not particularly assertive, but it's very cooperative. And one person or one party actually begins to play the martyr. And they say, I'm going to give up something for you. And part of the expectation is that the next time you're going to give it up for me. That rarely happens, but that's the thought process behind accommodation. And accommodation is usually confused with collaboration. The fifth and final conflict strategy is avoidance. And generally we think of avoidance as something negative, but there are times when it can really be the most effective strategy that you can employ. That's particularly important if you decide that you're not in a position to win, or you're not in a position to collaborate, nor are you in a position to compromise, and you certainly don't feel like accommodating. That's when it's wise to avoid or sidestep the issue until you're in a stronger position yourself. So those are the 5 strategies. It's a quick view of them. They're all pretty simple, but like a lot of other things that are simple, they're not always easy to use. And if you want to know more about it, look into Thomas and Kilman in the conflict resolution mode. You'll enjoy the strategies, and it'll give you some great advice on when to use them and when to stay away from them.
Thank you to our strategic partners, The Village, for participating and sharing your perspective. Do you have a burning question you want to discuss with an expert? Feel free to submit it via the Ask an Expert link featured on the page. Continue to listen to this series now or come back later for more. Each question featured may want you to learn something new.